I'm here with Dr. Joshua Miller, the co-author of Unrepeatable. So tell us what made you write a book called Unrepeatable.
We believe that, as St. John Paul II taught, that every unique and unrepeatable person is the way of the church. And that when we pay attention to each unique and unrepeatable person as the way of the church and draw out their unique calling, that we will build God's kingdom and renew culture, which is exactly the pastoral vision of John Paul II that's not really been emphasized in the church today, and we believed that it needed to be.
I agree. I mean, it really just drives our whole commitment to pro-life, to the dignity of the human person. But you tie this specifically to vocations, which I think is really, really interesting. So tell me about that.
We tend to think and pray about vocations as just state in life. So a call to the priesthood or religious life particularly, the call to marriage. But each person, by virtue of their unique creation, has a calling by God. God calls each person by name. And if we as a Catholic body were to pay attention to each one's unique and unrepeatable calling, then there would be a flourishing, we believe, of discipleship, of true relationship with Jesus Christ. There would be uh, most likely a larger amount of people who do respond to the priesthood and religious life, and stronger marriages as well. So we need to pay attention to every single person as Jesus did, and I believe the calling of love is to do that as well.
I think you've really hit on an important point there because, you know, oftentimes, particularly, through teenage years, kids are looking to be just like everyone else because they can't really recognize their own dignity, that they are, in fact, unrepeatable. How do we cultivate that sense?
A very important thing that we talk about in the book is to draw out the stories of each person. And when each person tells a story about activities that they've been deeply engaged in, that they deeply enjoyed, they light up, they begin to share themselves authentically. And when mentors, speaking in a broad sense, parents, youth ministers, priests, educators, when mentors draw out the stories of young people, beautiful things happen. And I know this from teaching and coaching. The kids light up, they share themselves authentically, and when they're listened to with deep empathy and they feel the affirmation of a loving person, they begin to grow in self-awareness of who they are uniquely, and it sets a context for coaching and mentoring that young person along a vocational path which is right for him or her, and ultimately about building up the kingdom and serving the community.
And certainly instills a confidence when you've peeled that back to really understand your uniqueness and its value.
Absolutely. If we just think about vocation in terms of state in life, and we approach young people with the question, are you called? And they know instinctively that you're asking them, are you called to be a priest or religious? Then they feel, if they're not drawn that way, that they're somehow less than they ought to be. So by paying attention to them as unique persons and drawing out their story, it does give them confidence that God has a unique plan for them, has a unique purpose for them that only they can fulfill. And that does give confidence and gives them a sense of the great value that they are, the unique and unrepeatable value that they are.
It's important that we're talking about this during Vocations Awareness Week, that we all know that we have this unique calling to magnify the glory of the Lord, and that we do that in our own unique way. And you've got this important resource as well, a workbook. So tell me a little bit about the workbook.
So the workbook is meant to be an accompaniment to the book itself. So it's got all kinds of practical exercises that help people reflect more deeply on what their own calling is. We wrote the workbook to be used primarily by facilitators to take younger people through it. So it's pitched for high school youth as well as college youth to help them take very seriously who they are, what they're called to do, not just down the road. A lot of young people think that their vocation, because they're thinking of it in terms of state in life, is something down the road, but it's not. It's a calling now. So we want to get them grounded in who they are now called to be, as well as the future.
That's so important. Thanks so much for spending some time with us. I encourage everyone to take a look at this book, Unrepeatable, because each one of us is unrepeatable, and that's meant for the glory of God. And we thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much.